All right, welcome everyone to Table Talk for homeschooling. Today's topic is choosing the curriculum. So I have our two panelists here today, and we will go ahead and jump right in. So we'll start with my normal question of why did you get started homeschooling? Angela, you've answered it before, I know, but we'll go ahead and go with you first.
Well, I chose to homeschool because I wanted to instill our family values into our children, also to give them the gift of time so we can work on their timetable, how they best learn, and just spend time as a family.
Great. Sandy?
Well, I started homeschooling because I quickly found out that my son was not going to blossom in a traditional classroom. He does not have learning problems. He just was extremely energetic. So, and then I just felt that it was, the right thing to do for my faith, and like Angela said, to give us a chance to instill our family values rather than whatever school values would be, in the curriculum within the teachers and that kind of thing. And so, I started homeschooling him, and then I just started my daughter too at the same time.
Yeah, that's great. So we'll jump into the topic. So it is choosing the curriculum. So do you purchase curriculum or do you create your own from scratch?
Well, I brought what I used the first year that I taught. I have this book here. I don't know if you can see it. If it's blurry.
It did briefly, but it did blur out.
Yeah, I think did they do that? Does Zoom do that? Let's see. There we go.
There you go. Right in front of you. It worked.
All right. So learning at home, preschool and kindergarten. And it has so the Christian Parents Guide with day-by-day lesson plans using the library as a resource. So I used to teach preschool. I've taught in the public schools, but I wanted something that I could kind of go by, just to kind of have a little thematic thing. And I say, God leads me to the curriculums that we use. Like, I can't take credit for these things, but I found this on Amazon. It's like super old. They also did one, I think, for first and second grade. So some of like the call numbers on the books were like a little outdated and stuff, but if we're doing plants, I can go find any books, on plants. So this is what I used as a guide. So just one book that I bought that lasted, for 2 years, because this one was preschool and kindergarten. And I didn't do everything exactly that it says in there, but it gave me a guide. And then I had other things I could pull from if they were really interested in a certain topic, then I could go deeper in that. But I like to have freedom to do what I want to do, not feel like I have to do what's on this list. And we love the library, of course. And so this was a very inexpensive way to get started. Because, you buy, I don't even know, maybe it's like $24 or something, for the book. And then, I had to put the time in to get books from the library, but we were already at the library, a couple of times a week anyway. So, reserving books and just going in and, and picking them up. You're like a homeschool parent when you've graduated to where you have that rolling cart, like that rolling crate thing where you put all your books in at the library and get my books for the month. As far as my children have gotten older, they're 10 and 12. Now I just kind of pick and choose. I don't use a boxed curriculum. There's nothing wrong with that. I just, again, like having that freedom, and I actually enjoy doing the lesson planning. So we've used things from The Good and the Beautiful, Book Shark. As far as like a bought curriculum, some of them are, open and go, which are great. It's nice for me to have a mix of that where, I can just open and I go, okay, science is taken care of kind of thing. Exploring Nature with Children is a curriculum that I did this year. So these are things that I've bought, but they're not expensive. And then there are so many free resources, which maybe we'll talk a little bit. I don't want to get too far ahead. But as far as purchasing, I've bought a few things here and there. And that's what works best for us.
I've done both. When they were younger, I had certain curriculums that I used for especially math. Like I didn't want to, jump. I did jump a little bit with my son, and that was a mistake. So I think it's really important for math to to stay in a curriculum as long as you can, because then you don't have gaps, and because all math curriculums are not the same. So I used preformed math curriculums like Horizons. A lot of people used Abeka. That wasn't my favorite, but and then when they got older and headed towards junior high school, I used a curriculum called Teaching Textbooks. And it's something that they get on, you get it on your computer, and there's a person that's teaching you a certain concept. So it goes all the way up into Algebra 2. And so then if you can't figure out the problem, then they show you how to do it. It's amazing for people that are starting to homeschool, have high schoolers. It's a really, really good curriculum. And I'm a veteran schooler now, so I'm not homeschooling my children anymore. I teach at Chess. And so, and as far as like other boxed, I used some, but once my kids hit high school, I started making some stuff up for them. Like for history, my son was really interested in like the world wars. So I put together a curriculum for him that just talked about the, world wars in the 20th century. And he did a year or semester study on that. And my daughter was a ballet dancer at the time, spent all her time there. And so for her health class, I put together a health class for dancers. And so she really enjoyed that. So I did both. But I never honestly stuck exactly to a curriculum unless it was math. I would branch off and get my own stuff and bring it in and make it our own, depending, your children will have different learning styles. And so I tried to accommodate that in whatever curriculum we used or whatever I added into a curriculum. So.
Great. So that kind of answered my second question, but if you guys have anything to expand on with it, it was do you follow a structured teaching path or do you keep it relatively flexible? It sounds like for the most part, you both kept it pretty flexible, possibly with the exception of math.
Yeah, and I would agree with Sandy, with the math. I mean, you really need to get those foundations down before you kind of start doing other things. You can add in your own activities again, depending on your child's learning style. Like Sandy was saying, if they're really hands-on, get the counters, and do things. I mean, even for multiplication, division, cut pizza, there's other ways that that where you can make it more hands-on. But it's good. I mean, unless that's like your really strong point is math, but just to kind of have that book where you're learning sequentially and you can see their progress.
I agree with that. Yeah. Math was really the only one that I followed standard and didn't deviate. And like she said, it's really important for your child's learning style to pick activities that go along with it to reinforce it. Like, especially when they're younger, when they're adding, you can use anything to show them how to add. Here's blocks. Here's 3 blocks and 3 blocks, and now you have 6 blocks. And so the kids that are hands-on, that helps a lot. And most kids, I think that most kids when they're younger are hands-on. Mm-hmm. Like they may have some leanings also to into visual or auditory learning, but they're little, so they're younger, and I think they learn best with hands-on kinds of things.
And I know that in previous topics, Angela, you've mentioned that you guys like to use baking as yours, and your kids are like, what do you mean we learned math?
Yeah. Yep. So, you're multiplying, dividing, or you have to take a recipe and cut it in half because you don't want like a huge batch of something, or again, pizza is always fun when you're doing fractions. Would you rather have 1/8 of a pizza or 1/4? And it's like, well,
yeah,
bigger than 4, but no, let's look at that and see.
Yeah. So you guys have both said that you have kind of pulled from box curriculum, so purchasing curriculum. What if it doesn't work for your family? Have you switched halfway through, or do you stick with it for the rest of the semester or year, or a combination depending on what the curriculum is?
I would say I've been blessed that everything that we have used, we've enjoyed. So I can't say I mean, knock on wood somewhere. I can't say that, we've found something that didn't work for us or I had to try to make it work. So I can't speak to that, but I would say if someone has a curriculum and it's not working for them, I mean, I've talked to other people who are like, I just put, $200 into this or whatever it is. And it's like, do you really want to struggle with your child through the school year to make, to take a square peg and put it into a round hole? I would say it's not worth it, in the long run. Holly, my whole thing is, learning should be enjoyable and fun and a lifelong thing. And if you're setting them up where it's just going to be a struggle, they're not going to look forward to their learning time. I personally, and I'm a thrifty person, but I would say ditch it. If it's totally not working and you've tried to make it work as much as you can, ditch it. It's going to benefit you and your child in the long run. A lot of curriculums out there now have sample lessons that you can get. And so, check those out and see, okay, you still might get to a point where you're like, this isn't working for us anymore for whatever reason, but check out those free lessons. I believe the library has a variety of, different curriculum books, that you can, flip through those and see if it's something, that you want to do. But, try to do as much research as you can, but sometimes you can still do all of that and it still isn't working for your family. And I say, just move on.
I have ditched a number of curriculums within a few months of like using them and just would be like, okay, this is just not working. My kids don't like it. It just was not working. And so I think that's why it's important to understand your child's learning style, especially as they get older, so that you can kind of tailor things to make it a meaningful learning experience rather than just going through the motions of something. So yeah, I agree with Angela. If it's not working, then I think you should switch and do something else. And also at the Heave conference every year, they have a used book sale. So it does not have to be a complete loss. You have to do a little bit of work ahead of time to get it ready. But if you want to resell it, somebody else might find that curriculum to work really well. So yeah, was not diligent in trying to force, the curriculum because I paid for it. And so I agree with her. It's not worth it to continue to try to make your children learn in a way that it's not working out for them.
So with that vein, have you guys ever found a curriculum that doesn't work for you in your teaching style rather than for your kids' learning style?
Mm-hmm. I would say that we tried to use a Becca because it is a good curriculum in many ways, but it didn't work for my teaching style. It's pretty regimented. And so you could use their resources. Some of their resources are great, but that wasn't my teaching style. Not that it's not a good curriculum, because it works for a lot of people. And I can't remember any others that really I thought, I can't do this. But mostly it would be if it was too regimented, and then it would be not just me that didn't like that because my teaching style, but also my kids. They just didn't, it was better for us to be more fluid and, use various things. And it worked better that way.
I think for me, I just look to see what I like and what I think is going to work for my girls. I feel like I could probably institutes are right, but like I could probably teach from anything,
Mm-hmm.
Whether I enjoy it or not might be different. But I think the parent needs to enjoy the curriculum as well, because if they're not coming to it with a joyful attitude, I feel like that's going to transfer to the child, even if it's something that the child likes. So, you know, is that unicorn out there that it works great for the parents and great for the kids? I think so. The funny thing, as I was looking at different curriculums and looking at samples and things like that, I would start seeing that a lot of them were Charlotte Mason based. And, you know, I don't like using labels in general, but they do help us to describe things. So if someone say, you know, I usually say I'm eclectic, you know, that just sounds like fancy, you know, because I pull from, you know, different, different things, but a lot of our stuff ends up being Charlotte Mason ish, or, you know, and I'm like, oh wow, I had no idea, you know. So it's like I'm just kind of seeing that's what I'm drawn to, that's what, you know, the girls are drawn to, and so that's kind of cool because I'm not like searching for Charlotte Mason, you know, things. So so that's kind of cool to see that. But again, we've just been very blessed with our curriculum choices thus far. We're still, I think, early in, you know, in the game, and that could change as we go, you know, the girls get older and stuff. I did want to point out one thing Sandy said about the curriculum sale is that, you know, I don't like to pay full price for anything. And, you know, homeschoolers, we unless you know, you have a lot of kids who are going to be using the same curriculum, and that might work, that might not work, you know, because if they have different learning styles, what works for one child may not work for the next child. So you might think, I'm buying this great box curriculum, I'm going to use it for all 5 of my kids. Might not work out that way. But to look around and buy used. There's so many, you know, things out there. You don't have to go and buy everything new. And if I could have one more thing that Sandy said about, you know, like reading lists and stuff, like My Father's World is, to me, a kind of an expensive curriculum, but you can see what their reading lists are, and so you could get those books, and, you know, if you'd like to make your own curriculum, you know, where you're not having to buy the whole curriculum, but you can still kind of, you know, use some of the resources. So there's a lot of choices out there to kind of create your own thing on a budget.
There's also when you said My Father's World, it made me think of the curriculum called Sunlight. And it is a reading literature based curriculum, and it is an excellent curriculum. I did not do everything through them, but I used a lot of their resources. And like Angela was saying about My Father's World, they also have books that they read at certain grade levels. So if you want to find out, oh, here's some great books for grade 4 or 5, you can go on their reading list and find those. And even sometimes you can buy them cheaper there on Sunlight. It just depends. But that, I think, of all the curriculums for us, the resources from Sunlight worked really well. It's not very regimented unless you want it to be. They have it so you can follow it, but I would definitely, if you're starting homeschooling, look into a number of different curriculums like that, and pick something that, you know, is grade appropriate and that you think your kids are going to like from those books that you can see on reading lists. The same thing applies for high school. You look on Sunlight for high school, and they'll have 11th and 12th grade whole reading lists, literature and history, and, you know, it's easy then to find things that will work for whatever you're doing.
Great. So with the curriculums and the regiment, if you buy a box curriculum, does it say things like start teaching at this time, or is it just kind of like, this is week 1, this is week 2? Because I know a lot of people think of the school year as very, you know, August, maybe September, depending on the school district, to June. But I know that sometimes homeschoolers, I know, Angela, you guys try to do year round a bit more. So how does a box curriculum kind of work into that?
They do have where, you know, it's like week 1, week 2. And if you're doing where you have the box curriculum where they'll have the math, the science, the language arts, you know, and stuff, they'll just, from my experience of seeing it, because I have researched it, we just don't use it, where it will say, you know, week 1, you're doing this page, or week 2. I mean, we have that in our math book. The nice thing about that is I mean, some people don't do science all year. They might focus on, history for a part of the year and then do science. So even if you have a box curriculum, you can still tailor it to, what works for your family. Typically, I think it's just easier to follow the school year, like the public school year as far as things, especially if you're planning those extracurriculars, and things like that where, you're on that schedule. But also the nice thing is, if something happens with your family or you're traveling, okay, well, we didn't get to week 3 yet. We'll just pick up back on week 3, when we're ready. Or, we didn't do science for a month because we were out doing some other science class that we signed up for. You could just pick right back up, where you were. I mean, if you like checklists, which I do, Holly,
Yes.
you go down and, you can just, keep track of, of where you are. I mean, even the curriculum that we used and we're actually going to be using through the summer, the Exploring Nature with Children, she has a calendar that she puts out and it says, week 1, week 2. It's based in the UK, so their things don't always follow ours. So I have to kind of, switch it up a little bit, but, it kind of tells you what to do at which week. And like for that one, you could start anytime during the year. If someone just bought the curriculum now, they could just start in July. So it's not like a math book, where you do have to go in order. You can't just start on week 35. But so that's why you really need to know the curriculum that you're getting. I know a lot of people for the nature curriculum, like, do I have to wait till September or January, to start? So you have to, know your curriculum. I mean, even for, some of the science and history, unless you're studying a certain period, you are going to want to go like chronological with things. So it's just really, I mean, we get to choose the curriculum. And I think a lot of parents forget that, we have all this power, and that can be exciting and it can also be daunting, and so it's, go back to, which I think someone mentioned at the last meeting, why are you homeschooling? What is your purpose for homeschooling? And then take that and with that idea to help you find your curriculum.
Yeah. I think a lot of curriculums have week 1, week 2, week 3, a lot of box curriculums. And so you can follow that easily if it works for you. But the other thing is that sometimes in those curriculums, you might get to a subject that the kids really like, right? And so you want to spend more time on that. So you may not get to the next week until it's 2 weeks later, but it's okay because you can be flexible. And so, I mean, that's one of the beauties of homeschooling is if your kids are interested in something, you can take off on that and spend some time, and they're still learning great things. It's just not, exactly the way that it was set up for the curriculum you're using. And I found those helpful to a certain degree, but I didn't always follow them. I had, we would stop, or we would, if sometimes even skip a week if I wasn't thinking that whatever that week was going to be beneficial for the kids. And you, just like you said, you go on a family vacation, do homeschooling for a week, come back, and you just start up where you left off. It's so flexible. It's very flexible.
And Holly, I just want to, some people feel like, I have to do all the weeks and I have to do them in order, we had the whole cicada thing this year, that wasn't a lesson in our nature class, but we were talking about bugs and stuff, but we deviated and talked about, what's going on in our real life right now. And so for the summer, I want to take some time off. I don't want to teach every week during the summer. So I decided, which ones was I going to eliminate from the curriculum. And I think so many of us feel like we've put money into this. We've put our blood and sweat and tears into picking this curriculum. Like we have to do everything. And no one says that you have to do anything. Don't let the curriculum rule you. It's there as a guide.
Yeah, I agree. Mm-hmm.
And I love what Sandy said, if your kids are way into, weather, and you've got some crazy weather coming up and you want to do that for 2 weeks, no one's stopping you, and there we have this, we meaning homeschool parents, this guilt, of, oh, well, gosh, I never got to the thing about volcanoes, but you just did this awesome 2 week lesson on weather, like, go back to volcanoes, never go back to volcanoes. Sunlight's not going to come after you for not doing week 43, so
Yeah.
we just really have so much control, and we need to not feel guilty, and we need to trust ourselves when making the choices, because we know what's best for our children, and it doesn't matter if Sandy's on lesson 45 and I'm only on lesson 34 and we're using the same curriculum, like it doesn't matter, because each family situation is different. And I know people usually hook up with other people who are using the same curriculum, but you just, I think we've said this in a couple of the other talks, don't compare, you can even go on, Facebook pages for the curriculum and Instagram pages, and stuff. And if those things are helping you, great. If they're making you feel less than because you're 5 lessons behind, or we didn't do that volcano experiment, or then stop following them. You want to look for things that are going to support you, not things that are going to bring you down.
Right. Also, I think too that, you can go either slower or faster if your children need more time to learn something. And it's especially true in math, where you can buy a curriculum in math and they have, will have so many problems that some parents will like, well, we have to do all the problems. Well, no, you really don't. As soon as you really know that your child has gotten that concept, and usually math curriculums will rotate, circle back so that you don't forget the concept before. And so you don't have to do all those problems unless your child needs to do those problems. And so for some things, they might need to do the extra problems, and others, they get it right away and you can move on. So I think that's really important to know. For your kids, if they've gotten it, then you can move on no matter what we're talking about. It could be biology, or it could be math, it could be anything, literature. If they've gotten the concepts you're trying to teach, you can move on. You don't have to follow a schedule. The schedule, I think, should be dictated by what your children need to focus on at any given time, what they need to learn, more or less.
Yeah, that's a great point. A lot of us talk about don't worry about being behind, but yeah, don't worry about going ahead. I've combined lessons in our science. I'm like, well, these are really similar. Like, it would make sense for my crew to combine these, and just, maybe this lesson will just be a little bit longer, but we're going to combine the two. I think also I mentioned this in another talk, but like for math, we don't need to do busy work. We're now, everyone sit there and do your worksheet while I'm helping these other people. Like, we don't need to do that. And I've also talked about having your child feel like they have ownership over their own learning. So I'll say to my daughter, I'm like thinking, you don't need to do these 20 problems because I'm pretty sure you've got this concept down. And I'll say, pick 5 of the problems and do those. And then if, she does those well, then, we can move on. But she feels like, ooh, I get to pick, the 5 problems that I get to do on this page. So she's feeling ownership. And then she's also just, she's not doing busy work. We can move on to the more important things, getting outside and, maybe you want to move on to the next lesson. Sometimes my girls are super excited and they're like, well, let's do the next one. I'm like, well, that's all we were going to do for today. They're like, well, let's just keep going. And roll with it. I was like, sure, let's do some more math. But, when you see that excitement, that's when you start going, they're getting it, they're enjoying it. And, and it's not, math again, kind of thing. And you want them to enjoy learning. Otherwise it's just going to be an uphill battle.
I will say though, sometimes in the high school years, everything is not fun. So, they're if they're heading for college, everything's not fun. And you have to do Algebra 1 and Algebra 2 for college requirements. And so maybe you like that and maybe you don't, but either way, you have to do it. And so the best thing is to find a curriculum that your child can follow. So, it changes as they get older. And like you said, you combined 2 curriculums to do it together. You can do that if you have kids that are close in age. Like mine are 3 years apart, but still for some things when they were younger, I did a lot of things together and their assignments might be different. But when they get into high school, it starts to become less likely that you can do things together, especially unless it's like history or, literature. But even then, it has to be grade appropriate, and you have to be preparing them for college.
All right. So we've touched a little bit about different types of curriculum, but where could new parents find these curriculums? Like, what are you guys just Googling homeschooling curriculum, or are there specific websites that you're going to? Anything like that? And I will add any specific things that you guys let me know to the right underneath where this video will be posted on our website for anyone who is interested.
So Rainbow Resources, I'm sorry, Angela.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. You're starting off great.
So Rainbow Resources is a place where they sell a lot of different curriculum. So you don't even have to buy it from them. You can, but you can get a survey of what is out there. And the other thing is you can just type in homeschooling curriculum for math or homeschooling curriculum for elementary, and a lot of stuff will come up now. I mean, a lot of people homeschool, so it's not hard to find those resources. You just have to use your computer.
Yeah, I was gonna say I went to Google first. I think for me, once we started like officially homeschooling, I say we've been, homeschooling since the beginning, but when, you officially turn in that, notice of intent, which I know we'll talk about next week, to me, it felt like it was, I don't know, something changed. I felt like I had to be more official, than what I was kind of doing for our quote unquote preschool learning. And so, part of me, I look back and I go, what's any different now that she's 5 than when she was 4? You just kind of keep doing what I was doing. You don't need to have a boxed curriculum to homeschool. You don't have to have a paid curriculum to homeschool. There are a lot of free resources out there. And so honestly, I did Google, and you can read reviews. You can read reviews on Amazon. You can read reviews from bloggers. You can see inside the curriculum, which is nice. If you're looking for Christian or non-Christian, or you want just DVDs, I know there's one mom in one of my groups, she liked doing the DVD thing for her kid, and her kid's like, I want you to teach me more. Like, I don't like doing the DVDs. It's like, oh, okay. So this is like a total change of, what would, for their family. And so, you can, of course, do very specific searches for what you want, but I would say definitely read reviews, what other parents, are saying about it. I mean, just because someone hates it doesn't mean you're going to hate it,
Right.
So it's good to just kind of, like you were saying with Becca, you said, I've heard either you love it or you hate it. Like we haven't tried it. I've looked into it, but, just do your research. I mean, you are, it's your job, like homeschool, like it's your job, like, you're getting new resources for your job. You're going to do research. You're going to see what other people think
Right.
about it. Is it a 4-star product? How much is it going to cost? Can I get it for cheaper? And it can be very overwhelming. Google is overwhelming in general, but, just really take your time. And if you find something that you love, I say just stick with it. Don't think there might be something better out there. If you already love what you have, then stick, and it's working for your family, then stick with it. There are resources, like Teachers Pay Teachers. There are a lot of free things on there, even for, the older grades that you can print out. I mean, there's also inexpensive things on there too. Enchanted Learning was one that I used a lot. I don't know that one's still around. I use that a lot when the girls were younger. They have things where like you pay a membership, for the month or for the year, and then you can print out, whatever you want. Not saying that you have to have something in their hand too. I'm big on, we don't need to have a book to learn, I think like real life experiences, children get a lot from that. And I think I've taught in the older elementary, like as the children get older, there seems to be less of, like field trips, and things like that. And we live in an area, especially around here, where there are so many resources, where you don't have to be sitting at a table with a book all the time, to learn. Let's actually go out to the Civil War battlefield, or, go to the, the museums downtown. So a curriculum doesn't have to be just, just a book. To me, the curriculum are your field trips and your co-op, has a curriculum. And so I don't want people to just think, it just has to be a book. I try to fit in, our field trips and our learning programs to go along with the curriculum. But it's not just about a book.
Another place that you can find some ideas too for curriculum or books or whatever is Christian Book Distributors, CBD. And they have a homeschool section there too. And sometimes on Amazon, you can find things. So, I mean, there's so much information out there, honestly, about different ways to homeschool and different resources that it can be overwhelming. But I mean, I loved it. I wish I still homeschooled, but they're older and one's married and one's at Penn State and getting his doctorate. So I'm done, but I wish I could. It was anybody that's thinking about it. It was one of the best experiences really of my life, of being able to do that. And and the relationship with your children too, when you're homeschooling and you're looking at things together. And I let my kids help me pick out a curriculum as they got older. So it can be a magical experience. It's hard though. It's not something that, you can just wake up one day and just start. You have to do your research, and find the right books for you, find the right curriculum, or however you're going to do it. And there are also resources that tell you different methods of homeschooling. So, Angela said she's eclectic. Well, so was I, but there's also, like she mentioned Charlotte Mason, there's different philosophies of homeschooling, and just education, and finding out about that, I think, is really important for a family and for your children, and how you want them to, to learn. And that information's out there too. Methods of homeschooling probably pop up. The best place to go, though, to look at curriculum is the HEAV conference that they have, homeschooling conference that they have. I guess, I don't know if they had it this year because of COVID.
They had I think they had a virtual one.
Okay, yeah, that's not the same. Yeah. So probably next year, if you we're going to homeschool, I recommend that. They have workshops, they have all kinds of books, curriculum, and it can be overwhelming to a new homeschooler, but it's really fun. You can take your kids if you want.
Yeah, and Sandy, isn't it free if they're just starting kindergarten? Isn't it? I think the HEAV conference is free.
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
it might be.
I think it might be free if you're just if your child's going into kindergarten.
Right.
But yeah, you can bring your kids and they can sign up and go do fun things, and you can sit in these different talks and stuff. And I know a lot of people like to touch the curriculum. I like to hold books in my hand. I don't do a lot of this Kindle reading, stuff like that. No offense, but
I don't either. Yeah.
To get to hold a book and flip through it and stuff. That's why these the book sales, the curriculum sales are awesome for that. Amazon is great. Usually I'll compare prices with Amazon, and if I want to go with, say, Master Books is another curriculum. We like that one. That Charlotte Mason-ish too, which I didn't know, all of stuff kind of coming together for us. But, kind of compare prices, versus Amazon, and then actually going through a curriculum's website. And a lot of times on Amazon, people will post pictures of, the inside of a book and stuff. So, I mean, there is a commitment there, to do your research. I don't want to say, everyone who has trouble with their curriculum hasn't done their research. I'm not saying that at all. But if you really do your research, I would, more than likely it's probably going to work out for you. Again, you might get halfway and just go, this is just boring. Like, it looks good on paper, but now that we're implementing it, like, it's boring and we all hate it, So, don't feel bad if you're like, but I did my research and I saved money and I did this and it still doesn't work out. Like, that's okay. Even in public schools, they change curriculums, of what they're using, and they find something that's, better or more updated or, or whatever. And so, there's nothing wrong with that. There's, I don't want to say there's not going to be the perfect things. I feel like we're kind of there right now with the things that, that we have found, but I know that will get, more difficult in a way as, as they get older and then more specialized in, in different subjects.
Well, and I know a lot of people probably have the feeling of, because they're not always, a lot of parents, or at least I know that a lot of my friends' parents, my mom not so much, but my mom was a teacher, so she was involved directly, but they aren't always involved directly with what the public schools are doing. So I've heard a lot of parents say, isn't there just one thing? Like, there's one right way to do this, right? And that is one thing that I think is difficult sometimes for people to realize, is there is no one right way to do it.
Mm-hmm. The right way is what works for your children. That's the right way.
Exactly.
It's, I mean, there are some breakdowns into groups and things like that in the public school. I've taught in the public schools as well. But it is a more one size fits all kind of mentality in public school. I mean, you have 20, 30 kids in a room. We can't have, what works best for, for all of those kids. We have to do what works best for the majority. And some kids can thrive in that environment and some kids not so much. At home, we can give them the gift of time. We can dive deeper into things. We can totally skip, not in math. We can totally skip things, we can get their input. I really would rather do science by watching, DVDs. Okay, let's see what we can find. One of the questions, I don't know if you're going to get to this one about, what do you teach? Are you gonna? Can I segue?
Yeah, you can segue right into it.
And so then, it's like, well, what do I teach? Like My Father's World does this history for, third grade, and this one does this history. Like, but what are they doing in the public schools? And so me coming from the public schools, I'm like, I'm going to look at the standards of learning, the SOLs, and I'm going to see how the curriculum I chose kind of fits into that, and then fill in any gaps. Because I wasn't going to change my curriculum because I loved it. So I was like, oh, okay, wait a minute. So they didn't really talk about this, so let me add some music appreciation or whatever. We're not held to any standards as homeschooling parents. We don't have a certain high school credits, that our child needs to have. And so we get to decide what we're going to do. Again, why are you homeschooling? Do you need to take a year out of the public schools because of family stuff? COVID, because some people go, well, I want to know what to do so he'll be ready, when he goes back in a year or two. We're only going to be homeschooling for a couple of years. Then I would say, look at the SOLs and kind of see, are they doing Virginia history this year? Then you're going to, want to, I mean, you don't have to, but, if you want to, do that at home. So at the beginning, I was looking at the SOLs going, okay, yep, cover, got my checklist because I like checklists. And then I'm like, this is nice, especially if you want some kind of guide, but I totally got away from that. I'm like, I don't need to follow this. Our goal is to homeschool through high school. And so I don't really need to be concerned about, what are our 11th graders doing, in the public school. There are books out there, what should, 5th graders know and things like that. If you want to just see, what should my child know at this age? And I'm sure on Google, there's lists of things too, of where the typical child that age, of what they're capable of doing.
And I'm sure that becomes bigger when you get to getting ready for college as well, as trying to make sure that they know what they need to enter college.
Right. And that's one, and I think we'll talk about this more next week, but as far
Yes.
as like transcripts and stuff, to think about, if they, where they want to go, then you can kind of tailor transcripts and stuff to that, and what they're learning, in high school and stuff. But yeah. I don't want to jump too far.
I think what drives the curriculum for your high schoolers, or what they're learning, whether it's curriculum based or not, is college. Because there are, we are like, if you want your student to go to college, there are certain things that almost all colleges want to see on, a child or a teenager's application that they've taken in high school. So in that way, once you hit high school, you kind of have to look to see what they're going to need to get into college if they're going to college. And that can be annoying, but it is just the way that it is. And so that's important, I think, to remember once they hit 9th grade, to start looking at those. And there's a checklist probably on HEB's website where you can look and see, okay, here's what most colleges want: 4 credits in this, or 1 credit in this, 3 credits in this. And then you just kind of check off and make sure, oh, I've got that. And that was important and helpful to me to have that, to know, okay, they need 2 years of this or 3 years of that. Or so yeah, that is one constraint that you do have on what happens in high school.
But at the same time, you can create a curriculum, or, get a curriculum and make it work for the transcript, versus feeling like
Right.
you have to do these certain things, like math. I'm sorry, I love math. I don't want to talk down about math, but one of the, where you just, you can only go to certain, certain levels
Mm-hmm.
and stuff. But, history, this was a college course, but I did history of mathematics, so if your child was really into that, then you could turn that into a history credit.
Right, you can.
So
You can count as a credit. Mm-hmm.
Right. So there are ways, you're still tailoring it to your child, but still thinking ahead.
Right. Yeah, you can look and see, oh, they need 4 years, I think, or whatever, of English or language arts. There's all kinds of things to do for language arts. So as long as you're preparing them enough to be able to do well in college, there's not a lot. You can create what you want to during those years. Some will want like certain kinds of literature, like British literature or American literature. But, you still have a lot of choices, even if you're following something like that.
Yeah, that's great. So last question before tips or tricks. We've mentioned free resources. So are there any places that you specifically go to find those free resources, or is that once again just kind of Googling?
I used to just do the Google thing, and it would just take so long, because there are so many, and then you think it's free, and then you click on it and then it's not, or they want you to sign up your firstborn child to get in a free account, and it's just like, I don't have time for this. I just need a picture of a butterfly so we can label its parts. I can't sit here for 15 minutes, So one of the first places I go is Teachers Pay Teachers. Again, you can choose, what do they call it? When you pick free, they even have homeschool. You can pick by grade level. You can just pick homeschool. And I usually say free or put in order from cheapest to most expensive. And you're getting instant downloads, and you can print them out, right away. You can save them. So, if you're using a computer at a library, you can print them there, but, wherever you are, you can save them and then go back and print them. I saw an awesome deal we do a Pi Day event every year, because I like math and I like pie. So we work that in. But so we started that, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago. And so I found this awesome resource, and it was on sale around Pi Day, but I had already planned everything for my Pi Day. So I bought it, and I'm going to use it for next year. So it's just sitting in my account so I can print it, whenever. I don't like having to have, a bunch of papers where I'm, saving them. Where did I put the Pi Day thing? And so it's nice to be able to go back and just look up and, and print things out. And I mean, they have every topic that you can think about. I mean, and Teachers Pay Teachers, they even have like Google slideshows. And I mean, I guess they used to have like PowerPoints and things like that. So, I mean, we don't have to recreate the wheel. I mean, I enjoy doing that on some of the things, that we're doing, where I'm gonna create this worksheet, or I'm gonna draw this thing, and if you have time for that, great. If you don't, so many other people have already done it. So there's no reason for you to sit there and try to recreate it. And so I always kick myself when I go to Google first and I go, why didn't I just go to Teachers Pay Teachers and say free, and the nice thing about that is when you are purchasing, you are supporting a fellow teacher, because we're teachers too. And so that's nice, I'm trying to think if there were any blogs when the girls were like the preschool age. There were some blogs that I would follow and they would have like free worksheets and things like that. But there is just so much out there. I would say be specific with your search, but if you're just looking for like a quick worksheet, I mean, they even have units on Teachers Pay Teachers. And so, I mean, that for me now is my first go-to, and look at the free ones first, because, why not, if I can get it for free and then, just kind of work my way down the list. But that has saved me a lot of time, because Google is just like a hole.
Yeah. All right. Sandy, did you have anything to add for free resources that you know?
Only that I agree. Teachers Pay Teachers is a great resource, but you can also get some really good things for like $5.
Oh,
so, you can do free, but then if you're not seeing anything, just put up a limit of $15 or $10 or whatever, and you can find some really good things. There's some really professionally made worksheets and resources that you can just get for a very, a costly buy, really good buy.
Great. Well, we're running out of time. So real quick, do you guys have any other tips and tricks to add on for anyone looking for a curriculum or thinking about homeschooling and are worried about the curriculum?
I would say don't worry, trust your, I mean, I know that's easier said than done, and people think I have it all together. I like planning. I like doing this. I used to be a teacher. I question things, I go, is this really like enough? Or are we really doing enough book work? Or, and I know we'll talk about this again next week, but when we do the proof of progress, and I mean, I don't even need to do that anymore, because I can see where they are progressing and where they need work. But, and you see that they're learning and they're grasping new concepts. And, I think for me, the curriculum is just providing different opportunities, for the child to learn, and don't, nothing is set in stone. So, we just have so much freedom that I don't think a lot of homeschoolers take advantage of. Like we truly do. And that it is hard, because then it's like, well, gosh, I have 10 million choices. Like what do I do? And, you can change. It might work this month. It might not work next month. Give yourself grace, especially if you're transitioning from public school to homeschool. That's a huge transition. You just have to come at it with a different mindset. And if you are just starting new, you've, from kindergarten, you've been teaching your child from 0 to 4. Okay. Like what's going to change now that they're 5? You're just going to keep teaching them and just bringing in other resources to help you reach your goal. And you have to decide, having a list of what your goal is. What's my goal for this year? I want her to be able to write her name, know her phone number, just kind of have some specific goals. And that's going to help you when you're looking for curriculum or fill in things like, on Teachers Pay Teachers. Look up phone number. There's going to be a lot of little activities on there that are going to help you with that. So you don't have to have all the answers when you start. I'm still learning about things. Things are going to change, as time goes on of what's available. And so, none of us have all the answers, but if you're willing to, take the time and look for it and do your research, I feel like you're going to be great.
The only thing that I would add that is it is related to this is Sally Clarkson is a writer and speaker, and she has written a number of books that are an encouragement to homeschooling mothers. So it's not necessarily how to do it, but it's like just feeling like, oh, okay, this is okay that I did it this way, and this is okay that I did it that way. And she's an encourager, for homeschooling and for what you're doing and for that you can do it. And I read almost all of her books. I loved it, and it helped me to stay like encouraged and not concerned about a lot of things and just enjoy what I was doing. So I just wanted to put a plug in for that. That helped me.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you both so much. So that's it for today. Our next topic is next week, and it's educational milestones and documentation. So that will be on July 8th at noon for anyone who would like to tune in for that one. This recording will be posted to the Manassas Park City Library website. So definitely take a look there.